Hey everybody, welcome to the Heidi Harris Show. I know it's been a while since I've done any of these videos, but many of you who followed me know that I was dealing with my mother, her illness, and her ultimate death. And I'm not going to talk about that now because I don't want to cry. But we've all been through it, so I'm not special in that regard. My mom was, but I've been dealing with that, so I haven't done a video in a very long time. But I really wanted to grab Michael Brown today because this is really important. Those of us in Nevada are looking at the situation where Governor Lombardo is talking about calling a special session. Now, we don't know what the special session's about. We don't know. But there's speculation that it's going to be about what I've called Hollywood handouts. I'm not sure. I'm not the only person who's ever said that phrase,
No.
used it, right? But Hollywood handouts, I don't know, welfare for grifters in Hollywood, whatever you want to call it. Bad idea for every state that's done it, every province that's done it. It's a bad idea. It's not panned out for anybody. But there's been talk of wanting it here. There are people who think that the Governor Lombardo might call us in for special session, the legislature, to talk about this. Now, what I'm hearing and reading, and Michael Brown's going to explain this, we're hearing that there's a lot of pressure from the trade unions because they want the jobs, of course, that would be associated with building studios in Nevada. We get all that. But what is funny, and I'm not going to ask Michael to comment on this, I'll take the political side, but for the governor to go in there and do it and try to kiss the butts of union labor leaders is crazy because they're not going to vote for him anyway. And that's pretty stupid. And these jobs will be temporary and the state will suffer in the long run. So Michael's here. He's got a great history. I mean, he was former president of Barrick Gold. So interesting. Worked for the Reagan administration and the Sisolak administration. He's a fellow at the Lincy INSTITUTE, Brookings Mountain West at UNLV. Welcome. I'm glad to have you. And please tell everybody what the Lincy Institute is.
Thank you. Well, it's good to be here. The Lincy Institute's a think tank here at UNLV that works in partnership with Brookings Mountain West, which is connected to the Brookings Institution in Washington, D.C. And we're all co-located together. And Lindsay does kind of the Nevada public affairs issue research. And Brookings kind of works with the students to expose them to large issues and how to do policy papers and things like that. Plus, we bring out Brookings speakers. It's very unique. It's the only field operation like this that Brookings has.
Oh, good. Well, glad to have you here. We appreciate you being here in Nevada with your resume, which, by the way, I will post up
Thank you.
in the comments because you've got quite an extensive one.
I was president of Barrick Gold, U.S. North America, the U.S. subsidiary. Okay. So
everybody's heard of Barrick Gold, right? There's nobody who hasn't heard of Barrick Gold. Pretty big deal. Worked with the Treasury. I mean, all kinds of things you've done in the past. And so I'm sure you don't have to continue to work, but I'm glad you're here contributing to society.
Well, thank you.
As my pastor always says, as long as you have breath, you have purpose.
Yes. Well, in my career, I had a corporate career, a political appointment, and now kind of doing the academic work. It's kind of a classic career path.
That's good. It's very good. So let's talk a little bit about, you worked for GOED, that's the Governor's Office of Economic Development under the Sisolak Administration, which had a lot of challenges with COVID. And I'm not going to get into any of that. We're not going to go there, but we know there were a lot of challenges that everybody had with that. But you understand how the Governor's Office of Economic Development works. You get all that. And you talked about, and by the way, this is a column. The reason I contacted you is I saw a great column you had in the RJ, which I will also link.
Oh, thanks.
And you talked about what you don't want to see happen. You've looked into this for an extensively long time and have not found any positives when it comes to the whatever you want to call it, Hollywood handouts, corporate welfare, whatever it is. Let me put it correctly. $1.5 billion in transferable film tax credits. Is that the official title for this?
Yes, that's kind of the vernacular that's used, and that was what was in there were a couple iterations of the legislation, but it was essentially a request for $1.5 billion in transferable film tax credits.
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about when they say transfer. Explain it to me like I'm 4 years old. When they talk about transferable film credits, how is it that money somehow comes out of either my pocket or something that I might want to do instead or have the state do instead? Talk about that.
Yes, I will. This took a long time to get my head around. Transferable tax credits date back to the 1960s when they were used for historic preservation. The way they work in Nevada is that they were first deployed for the Tesla economic development package back in, I think, 2011, 2012. And in film, it works the same way. Transferable tax credit is considered a favored industry. The state, as policymakers, have said, we want this. And so they will grant these tax credits if you meet certain conditions, employment, et cetera, et cetera. And the director of GOAD then signs that transferable tax credits. Well, in the case of film, these are given to LLCs that are producing the motion picture or the television show. It doesn't go to the studio. It doesn't go to the big name brand studio. But the LLC, they have no tax obligation. All right. They don't owe any taxes. They're a temporary entity. We don't have income taxes in Nevada. So, they might have de minimis taxes. So here's the transferable part. They then sell that on the market. And so let's say $10 million of transferable tax credits. Then they'll get, let's say, 10% processing fee. So they will then get $9 million from the entity they've sold it to.
So the entity, who do they sell those things to?
They would largely sell them in Nevada to casino gaming companies, insurance companies. So they buy that transferable tax credit.
Can I get some of that too while they're at it? We need $10 million, but I could use.
They give $9 million over to the film folks. They go do what they need to do.
Well, it's a shell game, isn't it? It's just a shell game.
Then they show up at the tax department. They show up at the tax department and say, I have a certificate for $10 million. So they've saved $1 million in this transaction, and they then get a full $10 million reduction in their taxes. So it becomes like currency at that point. Now, this was the part that took me a long time to really understand. The theory behind this is that the economic activity of this venture will reimburse the state for this. But we don't have income taxes in Nevada. We have gaming taxes and sales taxes.
We have FEES. That's how they spell taxes in Nevada.
Exactly. And we're not going to get into that issue. And in manufacturing, you have to buy a lot of equipment for manufacturing. You've got to build a great big plant. You've got to do a lot of things. And these things seem to be positive. In the area of film, the states across the nation estimate that for every dollar of film tax abatement they grant, they get between 10 and 15 cents back, and the rest is lost.
Wow. So how many years have states been doing this? What's the history on the film credit?
This started in the 90s, and it was Louisiana, and it was a way to kind of enhance tourism. It was like, come film in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And we'll give you this tax break for your local production. And this was a period of time in Hollywood when costs were rising. And so they were incentivized to do this. And then once one state started, then there were other states that copied. And Nevada did in 2012. 2011 created a small program here in Nevada. Canada also did it. And it kind of changed the dynamics of how films are financed, because making a film is a risky venture. And so if I wanted to go make a movie, I would put my own personal money into it. I might go to friends and family. If I was somebody famous, then I might have like other movie stars that might help me finance my movie. I might be able to get money from a film financing company. And then some studios will actually invest. But that's usually not enough. And so what's been built into the capital stack, that pool of money that they need to make the movie, are film tax credits. And why are they attractive to that producer or that showrunner that's making the movie? We don't have to pay it back.
That's right. That's money you can lose and not care.
Yeah, you don't have to pay it back, nor does the state participate in any profits. So if your movie's enormously successful, all those other people probably have some participation rights. The state, no, they don't have that. Wow. And so this just exploded across the country. And Georgia became the largest, and these marched on. Then the pandemic struck, and states were, oddly enough, when they came out of the pandemic, many states were flush with cash. They had all the ARPA money, they had the CARES money, plus they hadn't been spending a lot of money, and particularly the income tax states, they suddenly saw their tax collections rise, and so suddenly the film industry was very interested in getting states to expand their programs, and so the topic reappeared in Nevada. And I studied it briefly when I was in the Sisolak Administration, and then when I moved over to Lincy, I continued to study it. And no matter how I look at it, I cannot make it pencil out for Nevada, either on the job side or on the fiscal side.
Interesting what you said about gaming. I should know this, and I did not realize how gaming has their. Of course, gaming has their tentacles in everything. We all know that. Every single
Well,
thing.
it is our flagship industry. Most
Well,
states have a
right.
flagship industry.
That's true, but I also, and I am all for their success. All right, I want them to succeed. Obviously, I worked in the gaming industry back when I was younger, and I want them to succeed. And
Yeah.
I want all the people who work in the casino industry to have jobs. And what the executives are doing now, as far as screwing over the tourists and then firing the low level people, whole other story for another day. But I didn't realize that gaming has their tentacles in this from the standpoint of benefiting from these tax credits. I
Well,
did not know that.
yeah.
I don't think most people do. So that makes it all come together for me now, because gaming is who puts people in office. We all know that. So now it's clear. Now it's like I just put my glasses on, and now I'm seeing this from a totally different perspective.
Well, and the other thing that happens, and this is my concern, is what happens now to the state budget. So in Nevada, the way we do our state budget is we have a distinguished panel called the Economic Forum, and they meet and they look at all the projections and they say, okay, Governor, you have this much money to put in your budget. And then the governor prepares his budget. Then they meet again in May as the legislature's finishing it, and they look at those evaluations again, and then they build the budget. Well, what's missing? And what I think about 60 of 63 legislators are probably unaware of is at the Economic Forum in the last 15 minutes of a 3-hour meeting, they give the estimate of the consumption of transferable tax credits, which are then netted out of the budget estimates and is never available for the legislature to use for education, health, public service, anything like that. And we have 8 of these transferable tax credit programs now. This would be the 9th. And our obligation in that just continues to rise. And one of the things I'm frustrated with, and I believe Nevada state employees are wonderful people. They worked really hard for me during the pandemic, but it's a very siloed state government. We don't have a formal cabinet, for instance. I can't find what our total obligation is in transferable tax credits, what we've authorized, what we have deployed, and what could potentially be redeemed.
And you can't find them.
I can't find it, and I'm looking everywhere for it. I've tried to assemble it myself. So my concern is that you're suddenly going to add 1.5 billion in contingent liability to what may already be a $1 billion to $2 billion obligation.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that legislatures in the future are going to wake up and realize that after the Economic Forum does its affairs, it's like, where'd all the money go?
Right. We only have 3
And
million people in the state, and now
I,
we want to take that's 1.5 billion.
yeah, and I'm a wonk. And so when I took the GOET job, I went back to DC and I met with think tanks on the right, on the left, and in the middle. And I went to visit the Urban Institute, and they had done a lot of work for Nevada back in the 90s. And there was a guy there that had worked on these issues. And he looked at me and he said, Michael, I don't understand. You should not be using transferable tax credits in your state. You cannot afford it. It's too risky. So as GOET director, I never used the big ones. I never used my discretionary ones. It was a small package for lithium recycling at the very end. I just think that they're a major fiscal risk for the state. Now, we do have a nice little film program. We have an indigenous film community here. I could see that we could enhance that, see if it works, and see if it attracts folks. But we're essentially, where we're going now is we're making the making of a movie or a television show a public good, equivalent to the Highway Patrol,
Right.
equivalent to the DMV, equivalent to, education, health, and services.
Things that we need. Yeah, that we somebody wants a dog park, somebody wants a baseball.
Exactly.
All these things are going to be affected.
And we will be competing against major states that have substantial resources. Now, so my job is to collect up information. I have this vast collection. This is one of like 5 3-ring binders that I have on this. My job, I'm not a lobbyist, I'm not an advocate. I just want to make sure people understand how this works. And, if the public policy decision of the state, and I'm a big believer in this, if they decide this is where they want to go, so be it. But I think they deserve to know what the research shows. And so I spent this last summer, digging up all the research. And I went through, I think now I have 25 peer reviewed articles. I think I have 30 white papers from think tanks across the country. I have 9 performance audits from different states as to how their program's done. I have 1 Federal Reserve Board study and 2 books. And everything shows it doesn't produce the jobs that are promised. The jobs that do appear tend to be part-time jobs. The serious jobs, the high-paying jobs, stay in Hollywood. Lots of fly-in, fly-out workers, and then it's a fiscal folly for the jurisdictions. Those other states, though, can buffer all this with income taxes.
Right.
We don't have that option.
Right. Well, we don't want that option. I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for it.
I know you're not.
And so, and so I look at it and I go, why do we have to? Why do we start with something so huge? But secondly, I'm just not sure it fits Nevada. And there are alternatives out there. Right now, everything is in manufacturing. President Trump is trying to bring manufacturing back to the United States. We have proximity to California, the Pacific Rim, the Pacific ports, the Pacific markets. Arizona to the south here and Utah to the north. They're doing everything they can to bring manufacturing there. If you really wanted to diversify the Southern Nevada economy, it's manufacturing and logistics.
Absolutely. It's interesting, too, because I was just up in Northern Nevada a couple of weeks ago speaking at an event and got to chatting with a legislator.
Yes.
Mentioning names, off the record. And we had a conversation about this. This particular person had done a lot of research, not as much as you have, but a lot, had teleconferences with various states and things like that, and understood, and wasn't for it anyway, but then looked into additional information about it. Right? But the problem is, and this person said, the rurals don't want this. And I'm not asking you to get political, but the governor won because of the rurals. He did not win Clark County. He lost Clark County by 45,000 votes. So this is very risky for him politically. Once again, not asking you to comment on that, but the rurals don't want this. So we have one county that would benefit this, maybe some places up north, I don't know, but most of these other counties are not going to get any benefit from this, or any, they're not going to get a catering job or anything, or be an extra or anything like that. And yet they're going to get screwed over financially.
Well, I'm apolitical, and I don't want any governor to fail in the states. I've worked with Governor Gwynn, Governor Sandoval, Governor Miller.
Right.
I've always been there to try to present policy options, even when I was at Barrick. I want Nevada to succeed, and I want GOAD to succeed. So I just try to give the best advice I can on these matters. Now, Reno has transformed its economy. I mean, the diversification effort that Governor Sandoval launched has achieved incredible success in northern Nevada, and it bounced back from the pandemic very quickly. These are good companies. Sony and Warner, these are star companies. And Japanese investment's also something that everybody would like to attract to their state. The problem is how do we make this work where it's not such a fiscal drain on the state and more of a commitment on jobs? And at this point, I can't find that path forward.
Yeah, and you also talk in your article about, by the way, once again, I'll link this up in the video. This is a great article, explains it, so even I can understand it. Talking about how GOAD talks about the direct jobs on the site versus the indirect jobs with vendors and things like that. And as you mentioned, these people fly in. A lot of times they bring in their own people, their own directors, their own producers. Because they're used to working with certain people, their own makeup people, their own caterers. I've heard of them bringing into other states at times, depending on the situation. So that's where we have to look at it too. It's not going to bring a ton of jobs to people.
No. In economic development, you tend to measure things by direct jobs, people working there. Indirect jobs, the people that are supporting you kind of immediately. But then there's another concept called induced employment. And that's basically, and mind you, this is what economists use, and I'm not an economist, I don't pretend to be one, but induced jobs are, you kind of estimate what those first two groups are spending the economy and what it will produce. But in Nevada, when we take a project to GOAD for approval, we don't consider induced. We only consider direct and indirect. Because if you change, and I'm getting too wonky here, but there's something called a multiplier. that's very discretionary, and you can create all the induced jobs you want with that multiplier. So if you're going to grant tax abatements in a small state, A, you want to make sure it's economically positive. B, you want it fiscally positive, and C, you don't inflate the benefits with induced.
Right. And I think
You just run that risk.
that's what's been done all over the country, I think, when people are trying to sell it. And as you mentioned, it is different when there's an income tax in the state versus not having an income tax. We just don't have the margin some other states have. We just don't.
Well, and in other states, what I've seen is extreme multipliers put into their pitches on this. But I've also I've looked at audits, legislative audits from 9 other states, and they all show this very, very low fiscal return. But what happens is that this gets people excited. It's movie stars, it's Hollywood, it's tinsel, it's all of that, and it feels like it should work. But the gig nature of the studio system means that it really doesn't. So
a whole lot of starving people in LA looking to get famous. There are some making money, and a lot of them aren't. And not only that, the film industry is going downhill in a lot of ways financially.
It is struggling.
Speaking of, I looked at something today, and you had mentioned this when you and I had talked earlier. You mentioned this. I had seen the story, but I hadn't looked that closely at it. Tyler Perry, I'm a big fan of his. He's a brilliant producer, director. God bless him. He employs tons of black people. I'm sure white ones too, but I think he's a very, very talented guy. But he has now halted his $800 million studio expansion that he was going to do in Georgia. And I had not heard of Sora. Now, I don't want to get in the weeds on this, but it's an AI thing for those who don't know. I'm sure you do, but it adds, you can create your own little videos there, AI videos. I looked at it briefly today. I'd never heard of it. But he's very concerned about it to the point where he backed off on an $800 million expansion. That's huge, not just for Georgia, but nationally that's huge. And then we see that Marvel just left Georgia because they're doing movies in other places now. These are huge things.
The Hollywood Reporter, and I never thought I'd sit in a think tank reading the Hollywood Reporter every day, but they reported yesterday a substantial decline in productions and a substantial exodus of productions to Central Europe, where costs are far lower, and there aren't any unions. And Georgia has seen a substantial reduction of productions this year, as has New Mexico, as has Louisiana. And those 3 states are important because that's where you actually have brick and mortar studios, like is being discussed here. Where in Ohio and some of those other states, no, it's just for remote production. Yeah. I have no idea what that you're talking about in the way I collect typewriters. There's parts of this entertainment world that it's beyond me. What Tyler Perry, I understand, is doing is he's converting that into some kind of an entertainment district now because he was very concerned about AI and the effects on it.
Yeah, he is. And to your point about them taking production overseas, my uncle is a musician, and he was one of those first call guys in LA and played Paramount and the other studios, 500 movie soundtracks over the course of his career.
Yeah.
All the big movies you've heard of. And at that time, they got paid scale and, they got residuals. Well, now they're getting the orchestras overseas, who in Eastern Europe and places like that, who are fabulous musicians, who do what they need, who are not going to get residuals, who are paid much less money to begin with. Here we go.
It is an industry in transition. It's what I've always found captivating. I went last summer and went to Paramount, and I just kind of got on the tour. It was a VIP tour. It was really expensive. It was a fabulous tour. I'd highly recommend it. But I asked so many questions about how all this works that at the end of it, one of the longtime Paramount guys walked up and he says, "Are you a senator?" Because nobody's ever asked these questions before.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised some senators don't ask a lot of questions. Well, good for you for asking all the questions. That's how you get the scoop when you're walking around getting the VIP tour.
Yeah, and I came to understand it. It is an industry, though, still in great transition. It has not recovered from the pandemic. It's not recovered from the writer's strike. We're already expecting to see, and you've seen it with Paramount here, mergers and acquisitions going on. So it is an industry in big time transition. Governor of California just did nearly $1 billion of film tax credits to kind of help advance, help their flagship industry. And so you're going to see, I think, a resurgence of productions, and there'll be a lot of political pressure for the productions to be in California.
Well, listen, they can keep them there. And I don't hate Hollywood, and I like to see actors work. I don't know many, I know a few, but I like to see people in entertainment employed. I mean, certainly in all kinds of industries, but I just don't like, picking and choosing winners and losers to the extent that you are costing the taxpayers good services they're paying for. That's not fair to
It's a
us.
struggle. I've done an estimate, and I believe that out of the 1.5 billion in film tax credits, that the general fund, and this is my obsession because this is what the state budget is focused on, and this is the entity that is granting the abatement. I think it could lose upwards of 1.4 billion over the 15 years. Now there will be taxes for Clark County, but Clark County is not putting anything in the game.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Clark actually gets more money, and the LVCVA gets more money than does the state in this because of our tax structure.
Don't get me started on the LVCVA. I'm glad we have them because no one's ever heard of Las Vegas.
and then
Don't get me started on the bloated salaries or anything else at LVCVA running around saying, as you can see, the beaches are crowded. Everyone's having a great time. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You don't have to.
Moving along. The state education fund would get money because we actually have a general fund. Now we have a state education fund. So GOED estimates that the general fund would get back 23 cents to the state. That's 10 cents more than most states are seeing. And so I don't have a high confidence in that 23 cents.
Right.
And in fact, my estimate of the 10 cents could be on the high side.
Wow. Well, it's funny how their estimates aren't necessarily. I remember years ago interviewing somebody who ran the PERS at that time in Nevada. And she said, oh, yeah, it's fine. It's solvent. It's getting 8 to 9%. I said, if you can get that kind of money, you can have my money.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I was around in 2010, 2009 when the state nearly ran out of cash. Where they were wondering if they could make the payroll because I was in mining, and I remember we bought a bunch of trucks, and I got a call from the governor's office saying, we just saw a big pop in sales taxes. Did you buy some trucks? And it was like, yeah, we bought some trucks, which kind of helped it.
Right.
So, I remember those very dark days of 08 and 09 and 10. But with term limits now, our legislators don't have that kind of institutional memory.
No, they don't. And and people need to understand how important gaming is to Nevada, and when gaming's down, how bad it is. I mean, if you've not been to places like Ruth and McGill and places like that around Nevada, towns that are just destroyed when mining is down. I mean, it's very, very important for Nevada.
Yeah, the way it fits together is that the mining counties are basically very self-sufficient. When you go to other states that have rural counties, Colorado, they end up being subsidized by Denver. So our mining counties are self-sufficient, and our gaming industry is world-class.
No question about it, and we want them to succeed. I mean, I'm pro. Listen, this is my hometown. I'm born here, raised here. Very pro Vegas. I want us to succeed, but I'm just tired of giving out welfare to people like the Raiders. And I'm sorry, did I say that? And I don't want to give welfare to Hollywood. Let them sink or swim. We're a little tapped out here. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'll put some more policy. So in economic development, you kind of have this concept of but for the incentive would they have come here, and there's a bit of science to that. And then what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring companies here that will create full-time sustaining jobs. You want to perhaps give them a temporary abatement and incentive to kind of locate here so that they eventually stand themselves up as tax-paying businesses here. That was the concept in 2012 when we launched economic diversification. And in this case, though, and even in the one hearing that was held in the legislature on this, it was very clear that if the subsidy isn't there, the film productions won't occur. So this is less an incentive and more of a subsidy ongoing forever. In Louisiana last year, the governor tried to eliminate it, and there was big lobbying effort, and they ended up just capping it. I believe Governor DeSantis abolished his because they discovered that Florida was only getting 10 cents back on the dollar.
Yeah, he's a guy who can read a spreadsheet. Some people can't. Yeah. I'm glad you can. Michael Brown, thank you for taking time. I so appreciate it.
It's been delightful.
Thank you. And I'll put your bio and all the information. I'm just trying to inform people, and I make my snarky comments because that's what I do. But I want to inform people because the other side's not getting out. And I think it's very important for people to listen to the other side and I know people in the film industry who are would love to have this come. I don't know many, but I know a few who are all like, yeah, 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 because they want the jobs closer to home. But that's like a few people that I know. It's not good.
Like I say, I would like to see an enhancement of the existing program, but it has to be within that range of affordability and really focused on local talent. I'm not a lobbyist on this, like you. I'm just trying to get information out there, and it's nice because I have the freedom, academic freedom, to kind of do this research. I'll put you on our mailing list. Maybe there's other issues we can talk about in the
I
future.
would love to. I would consider that a privilege. It is great to have you in Nevada, and it is great to talk to you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate that.
You take care.
Thank you.